Welcome to my video of our cruise around the Pennines aboard narrowboat Somerset in April 2022. Our Pennine cruise is divided into 3 parts. This is the third and last part and covers our cruise along the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. We cruised 29 miles, went through 27 locks and 33 swing or lift bridges. The map shows our overnight moorings. Karen left us at Leeds and got an Uber to Nottingham to pick up her car. We left Leeds around 9 o'clock and cruised a half mile up to the Oddie 2-lock staircase. Mandy definitely put on her Sunday best for Easter as she was getting ready to take Somerset up the staircase. I went ahead to make sure that the top lock was full and the bottom lock was ready for Mandy to enter. At Spring Garden Lock we posed for a Shire Cruiser photo contest, then found out they were no longer holding it. At Spring Garden I went on a morning walk up to Kirkstall Lock. That was about 2 miles. I think it was at this lock that Simon and Sally joined us for their second day of cruising. It looks like Mandy took a more relaxing way to get there. Just after Kirkstall Lock there's a nice view of the ruined Cistercian Kirkstall Abbey. Its ruins have been painted by a number of artists including William Turner. Here's a close-up of it. It would have been a worthwhile visit. I think it's around noon. Again, it's Easter Sunday and we're going up the Forge 3-lock staircase. There's actually a boat coming down, so we're waiting for that one and then we'll start the climb. This is the first 3-lock staircase that we've encountered on the Leeds and Liverpool. Here are some video clips of my journey up the staircase. I'm in the lower lock of the Kirkstall Forge staircase. And now I'm in the middle lock. And with the help of a great crew, I've now made it into the top lock. Huntington got hung up on the wall of the bottom lock, but a burst of water from Somerset freed her. We are becoming very efficient ascending the staircases. At nearly 3 rise, Simon took the tiller and doubled up with Huntington. Here they are in the top lock. Sam and Terry also had friends who joined them for the day. All of the box paddles were tough and Sam is having to use some muscle power to open this one. I think it was in this lock that the front door came open and the carpet in the salon got wet. Now we're coming to the first of many swing bridges. And it was a real problem. We could only open part way and not enough for Somerset to get through. In the end we tied our bar rope onto the gate, reversed and finally managed to open it. Then came our second problem. There were quite a few people waiting to get back across the canal, but even with lots of help we couldn't swing the bridge back in place. We finally closed it by tying the stern rope to the bridge and pulling it closed. After that bit of excitement, it was a sunny afternoon cruise along the pleasant Yorkshire countryside. Around 4:30 we moored up at the nice 7-day visitor moorings at Rodley Wharf. A few yards from our mooring was the railway pub. We were there too late for Easter Sunday roast, but we did have a very nice dinner there. Afterwards we said goodbye to Simon and Sally and to Leo. Sally had a friend who raises chickens, and she agreed to adopt him. Just as a footnote, when we got home we found out that Leo was a her, but she had settled in very well with her chicken cousins. In the evening we cruised for about an hour and moored up in open country just before Appley Bridge. That was around Woodhouse Bend. We didn't take a photo of our mooring tonight. This photo is borrowed from Canal Planner. It's 6 a.m. on Easter Monday morning, and it was an interesting night. When Mandy went to bed, her porthole was on the towpath side, but when she woke up, she could see water. Our front wasn't tied up, and during the night we had drifted across the canal. In their PJs, Mandy and Yvonne retied the boat. Someone had stolen our mooring pin during the night. The good news is we had a really nice early morning leisurely cruise into Appley Bridge. After cruising for an hour or so, we arrived at our first challenge of the day, Millman Road Swing Bridge. Fortunately, there was no traffic on the road because it was a national holiday and there were not many people up and around at 7 a.m. This one is operated mechanically from a control box using a Canal and River Truss key. Right after the swing bridge was the two-lock Dobson staircase. These locks are well maintained and there's very little water escaping underneath the gates. Here's a nice view of the lock cottages at Dobson staircase. There was a water point by the top lock, so we filled up our tank. We didn't take many shots showing the effort required to open and close those swing bridges, but Jill is making this one look easy. Jill didn't realise it at the time, but if she walked a few yards down the path, she could have explored the interesting buildings of the Esholt sewage plant. When it was built in the early 1900s, it was one of the largest sewage works in Europe. It's around 8:30 in the morning and we're approaching the three-lock field staircase. Mandy takes Somerset up the locks and Gillian and Yvonne do the hard part. We're coming into the historic market town of Shipley. Until the mid-1900s it had a thriving textile industry. The old wharf and loading sheds are now moorings for narrowboats, including this somewhat unusual one. As Monday is Shipley's market day, the plan is to find a mooring, walk into town, check out the charity shops and pick up some groceries from the market stalls. We moored up at Salt Wharf and I walked into town ahead of the girls. Oh no, it's Easter Monday and there is no market on Easter Monday. I'd made a bet that Arsenal would beat Southampton 3-0 on Saturday, so I popped into William Hill's to find out the result. Arsenal lost 3-0. After visiting the charity shops, the girls cruised down to the Victorian industrial village of Saltaire. It was only a mile or so away, so I decided to walk there. They moored alongside the impressive salt mill that was built in 1853. More about the mill later. First, here is a brief history of Saltaire and its founder, Sir Titus Salt. Sir Titus was a wealthy Bradford mill owner, but was appalled at the living and working conditions of his employees. So he decided to up sticks and move his business elsewhere. He owned a rural tract of land 3 miles from Bradford that was ideally located by the Leeds and Liverpool Canal and the new railway station. In 1851 he hired the architects Lockwood and Mawson to design a new village in Italian Renaissance style. It would include his mill and much improved conditions for his employees. The mill was opened on the 20th of September 1853 with much fanfare. It was a masterpiece of its time and was highly productive, turning out 18 miles of worsted cloth in a day. I took this shot from Charlotte Street as I was walking into the village. Surrounding the mill, Salt constructed 850 stone houses for his workforce, including a grid of tidy cobbled streets, all fed with fresh running water from a purpose-built reservoir that had private toilets, heating and gas lighting. Saltaire also had its own park, school, hospital, church and a library, as well as a public bathhouse to encourage better health and hygiene among his staff. Of all of Saltaire's amenities, Salt's Institute may have been the most impressive. It contained a gymnasium, a laboratory, a snooker hall, a library, a reading room and a lecture and concert hall. The school was designed to take 750 children, with boys and girls segregated in the two principal rooms and infants in the smaller central room. Unfortunately, the church was having some repair work done and was in scaffold when we were there. The girls also took a tour, and here is Yvonne in front of the institutional hall. Here's a little known fact. The two lions in front of the hall were originally sculptured for Trafalgar Square, but were deemed too small, so Titus bought them for his village. They also checked out the shops on Victoria Street and obviously found the ice cream shop. While they were strolling around town, I crossed over the River Aire and walked around Roberts Park. I then took a vernacular ride up Shipley Glen and walked back down through the woods. We eventually met up at the boathouse and had a pint overlooking the River Aire. I found our 2-hour visit to Saltaire very interesting and well worth the time spent. Mandy takes us over the River Aire on the 131-yard long Dowley Gap Aqueduct.
This is Dad doing the whole Dowley Gap locks by himself. Emptying the lower lock. Dad opening the gate at Dowley Gate Gap Locks.
This is the paddle. So it had a drum barrel, and we went over there and got the cart guy, and he took it out. Then we filled the locks by opening up there, and then the two locks fill at the same time.
This is a flashback to 1993 and what I was talking about. Here is the lock keeper getting the oil drum from behind the lock gate. He was coaxing his engine along with ether and smoking a stogie while I had a toddy. We are in the bottom lock and the ground paddles of the top lock are fully open. Little did I know what was going to happen 29 years later.
Okay, this is Dad coming into the Dowley Gap lock. Cutting the gate. closing the gate. People wondering why we're not helping.
And then disaster. After I closed the middle gate, I had a mine block and opened the gate paddle instead of the ground paddle. Somerset was bounced around the lock, water came into the bow, and the lounge carpet got soaked. The single-handed assault of Dowley Gap staircase was aborted. We moored up in open country just after Dowley Gap and hung the lounge carpet on the roof to dry. We then walked about 1.5 miles into Bingley, and the plan being to have dinner at the Brown Cow. However, on the way there we passed the old White Horse and decided to give it a try. Good decision. It had a nice outside eating area overlooking the River Aire, but we decided to eat inside. It's thought this pub is the oldest public building in Bingley. We had this nice library room all to ourselves. And yes, Mandy, I have the evidence that you stole my beer. Even though it was a bit of a walk from the boat, we made the right decision in picking the old White Horse. Here's a nice evening shot of All Saints Church in Bingley. We had a nice evening walk back to our boat. It's about 8 o'clock on Tuesday the 19th, and we've just pulled up pins and heading for the Bingley 3 rise. That's an unusual top on the chimney. I'll have to ask someone about it. We've tied up at the bottom of the 3 rise, had a nice cooked breakfast, and now waiting for the lock keeper to come down and unlock the top gates. The lock keeper arrived around 9:45 and Mandy took Somerset into the bottom lock. Although there was a Silsden hire boat behind us, Huntington joined us on the way up. After the 3 rise, it's less than half a mile to one of the 7 wonders of the UK waterways, the Bingley 5 rise locks. I walked ahead of Somerset so I could get some shots of the boat ascending the 5 locks. Here's a nice photo of the 5 rise with Yvonne on the bottom gate. Most people spend their time concentrating on going up and down the locks, but the surrounding countryside is well worth a look at. The 3 rise and these locks are controlled and operated by a lock keeper and his crew. Somerset and Huntingdon are waiting to get the go-ahead to enter the bottom lock. When we came up in '93, Barry Whitlock was the lock keeper. He was awarded the MBE, and that's the Member of the British Empire, for his services to the UK Northern Waterways. I found out from the current lock keeper that a nearby retirement community was named after him. Unfortunately, he now has dementia. I wanted to get a video of the boats going into the bottom lock. But because there was a delay, I went and got a cup of tea at the Top Lock Cafe. By the time I returned, they'd already gone into the lock and were just closing the gates. Fortunately, we did get some shots. Terry has just gone into the bottom lock and Mandy is following her in. And Sam closes the gates behind them. Yvonne took the tiller over from Mandy and brought Somerset through locks 2 and 3. At lock 4 it was my turn to take the tiller and complete our ascent of the Bingley 5 rise. Sam gave the lock keepers a helping hand by doing the box paddles. Look at that nice neat bow rope on Somerset. At lock 5 Sam promoted me to Admiral and promised to tidy up his bow rope. And as you can see, he kept his promise. We visited the Top Lock Cafe and the girls bought all of us, including Sam and Terry, a Bingley 5 rise china teacup. And Mandy and Gillian bought themselves a Bingley 5 rise bridge plaque.
Well, we've finally made it up the Bingley 5 rise. And now we've got the electronic swing bridge, which the lock crew manned for us. Of course, there's been quite a bit of traffic held up, but I guess 8 or 10 boats have gone through, and they're letting the traffic clear now before they open it for us. We're the last 2 going up.
This must be where Sam promoted me to Commodore. Actually, this might have been where Gillian invited a couple of youngsters to come on board with their parents, and I'm saluting them farewell as they left. It can't get better than this. An afternoon cheese and veggie plate with an afternoon drink cruising along the cut. Well, it didn't turn out quite that good. The girl said I was going to hit the bank on the towpath side. I have to admit I did drift a little to port as I took this photo, but I was a long way from hitting the bank. Except there was a protruding wall of a dismantled swing bridge that jumped out from somewhere. Yvonne and Jill nearly ended up in the cut, but I think Mandy saved most of the goodies. 2 no-nos in 2 days. I'm sure the girls decided that I should be stripped of my rank.
It's around 2:45. We've gone through a number of swing bridges and we're now entering Low Wood. This will in a little while be coming up to one of my favourite moorings.
And this is it. We spent quite a while trying to find the mooring. Unfortunately, I didn't bring a photo of the actual mooring with me. The photo I'm holding in my hand was taken just a few yards above where we were moored. When I got home, I found this photograph of a much coveted offside single mooring. Obviously, this is where we moored in 1993. It's located a few yards before Booth's Swing Bridge. We gave up trying to find the exact spot, and I went ahead and opened up Booth's Swing Bridge. After Somerset went through, I wasn't able to shut it. It was catching on an embedded rock, and the only way it would close was to have someone stand on the end of the bridge to offset the balance. Another challenge was successfully met. The mooring we were looking for was only a few yards from the swing bridge. I just love that country smell. And the view is very nice as well. I really hope that bridge is going to hold up. After a very interesting day of cruising, we moored up near Silsden just after bridge 191A. The girls went into town and had a pint at the King's Arms, and on the way back to the boat they popped into the Robin Hood for a nightcap. It's Wednesday the 20th of April, and this will be our last day of cruising the Pennine waters. After we left the top lock of the Bingley 5 rise yesterday, we started cruising the 17-mile and 2.5 furlong Lock 3 Pound, the longest on the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. However, we'll only be cruising 6 miles from our overnight mooring to our final destination, Skipton. It was another beautiful sunny morning, and Gillian went on an early morning walk towards the village of Kildwick. It was around 8 o'clock that I decided that I should also stretch my legs. It turned out that I walked 5 miles to the outskirts of Skipton before turning back and joining the boat just before Bradley Swing Bridge. Most of what follows will be extracts from the videos of the countryside I took while I was on my walk. I don't have many photos of the girls' cruise along this section, so I'll use Mandy's diary to fill in the blanks. This photo of the surrounding countryside was taken soon after I started my walk. The village of Kildwick was about a mile from our mooring. This is St Andrew's Church. It is historically significant, and there's evidence that an earlier Anglo-Saxon church was built here. Its graveyard is in 2 sections on either side of the canal. I don't know if it was split when the canal was built or if it just ran out of room and they expanded up the hill. The village has some well-restored canal-side buildings now used as private residences. The village and its houses were definitely built on a steep hillside. This is the main road that goes under the canal. I didn't go into the upper part of the village, and I really wish I had. I think it would have been really interesting. I'll take this steep hill and go down and have a look at the aqueduct. The girls got away around 9 o'clock and also visited the village. I think they walked around the steep streets. After leaving Kildwick, it's pleasant countryside, definitely sheep country.
I can see why Pat really enjoyed cruising this part of the canal. You could not ask for better walking country on a nice sunny day.
The traffic noise of the nearby A629 detracts somewhat from this woodland scene. Just beyond the trees is Farnhill Pinnacle, an unusual monument to Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee that was built in 1887. I didn't visit it because I didn't want to take the chance of the boat going by me. As I was walking along, I just happened to notice this grave marker in the hedgerow. It's dedicated to 7 members of an RAF crew that died nearby on the 23rd of September 1943. All of them were Polish. I cleaned it up a bit and took this video. At Hamblethorpe Swing Bridge there's a large memorial and information board about the men and the crash. Pause the video if you want to read the details. After 3.5 miles and a couple of hours walking, I was approaching the village of Low Bradley. The mill, constructed in 1860, was converted into a number of residences. Somewhere between Kilwick and Old Bradley, the girls had a little bit of a problem. Jill was writing some postcards on the front deck when all of a sudden a gust of wind blew them into the cut. They did manage to retrieve them, albeit a bit wet. However, they ended up getting stuck on a sandbank and it took them quite a while to get off. I'd take a guess that narrowboater is a gardener. There was no way I could keep up with this speedster. He was really chugging along. Maybe we should buy this one for Sammy as a wedding present. I popped into Snakehill Boatyard to see if they had a mooring pin to replace the one that was stolen. They didn't. The white beam below is part of a fleet that Silsden boats hire out. There are quite a few of them out today. It was close to 11 o'clock, so I pulled over to see if I could get a pint and wait for Somerset to arrive. It wasn't open, so I continued walking towards Skipton. Later on, when I was back on Somerset, Jill explained that these domes were to protect customers from COVID. It's now well past 11 o'clock and I'm at Horse Close Bridge and about a mile from Skipton Visitor Moorings. Somerset is nowhere in sight and I'm becoming concerned that there's been a serious problem, so I started retracing my steps back to Silsden. On the way back I did help a day hire boat get unstuck. I'm guessing it was about noon that I finally met up with Somerset just before Bradley Swing Bridge. My short morning walk turned into a 6.5 mile stroll along some beautiful Yorkshire countryside. On the way to Skipton, Mandy also popped into Snagill's, but they didn't have much in their shop. There was a lot more traffic this afternoon than we'd seen on the entire cruise, and a number of these were those wide beams that I'd mentioned. I'm a bit confused on the sequence of events after our arrival in Skipton, so I may have some of the following wrong. We first moored up just before Gallows Bridge, but we then found a nice mooring just beyond the junction with the Spring Branch. We went for a walk around town after we got settled and I went for a stroll up the branch. Mandy saw a boat drifting in the canal near where we first moored and there was a kid sitting on the bow. Apparently he'd untied all the ropes and left them on the shore. The Skipton boat employee got the boat secured and the kid quickly vanished. She found out later that he'd also graffitied a bench. Brian and his wife Nina travelled up to Skipton to spend some time with us and checked into the Harrods. It's just along the towpath from where we'd moored. Brian had no trouble tracking us down, and the five of us went over to the boathouse and had a pint. Brian then went back to the hotel to get Nina, and after we'd introduced ourselves, he took us to one of his favourite pubs in Skipton. This was the Narrowboat Inn, located on Victoria Street. We then checked out the market in Sheep Street and walked up the main road to Holy Trinity Church. I also went and checked out the Spring Branch. It was built by the Earl of Thanet, the owner of Skipton Castle, to convey limestone from his nearby quarry. Later on we met up at the Castle Inn for dinner. The girls finished off the day by having a pint at the Black Horse. We had planned to cruise up to Gargrave and back to Skipton tomorrow, but we decided to spend the day in town. So today was the last day of our cruise around the Pennine waters.
And I know that I'll be back again to cruise along the waterway, not caring where or when. There's no deadlines, no telephone, no reasons to pretend. And the only thing you need to know is what lies around the bend.
Now for our non-cruising days. I'll use extracts from Mandy's diary for the next few days and include some relevant photos and videos. Woke up to a lovely crisp morning once again. Walked down with Jill so she could do some laundry. Joined up with Brian and Nina and went to Skipton Castle. Lovely old castle. Had tea at the castle tea shop, then went to Busy Lizzie's for lunch. Dad went back to the boat to pack, and Yvonne, Jill and I shopped some. Walked up the Spring Arm branch and a little walk behind the castle. Then visited several pubs. Then back to the boat to pack, had dinner with Sam, Terry and Henry at the Railway Inn. We met up with Brian and Nina around 11 o'clock and went on a tour of the castle.
So we finished our tour of the castle. Very interesting, very informative. And now we've stopped for a cup of tea, having a cup of Rosie Lee.
Yvonne didn't want to miss out on Busy Lizzie's fish and chips. It looks like I missed out on a good pub. We had a nice dinner with Sam, Terry and Henry at the Railway Inn.
Well, it's now Saturday, I think it's the 23rd, we're at Heathrow Airport having their final beer before going back to the USA. Cheers.